Athletes are published on many medias, such as newspapers, television, radio, internet, social media, and magazines. They are published on there in order to raise their status, promote charity work, and other work that they've done, like sign a new contract or enhance the status of a new sponsor. They also discuss their performance of previous matches and respond to past events. Also, athletes can take part in interviews, which can be pre-recorded, which means they can plan their responses to the preset questions that the interviewer must ask, or it can be live, which is immediate reaction during the event or after and before. And this makes it more difficult because they're going to have to be honest and try to avoid being too emotional. When an athlete's being interviewed, they should use a normal pace of speaking, change of tone, speak clear so that everyone can understand them and stay interested within the subject of the interview. Language should be suited to the audience so that they can fully understand. Specialist language and no swearing, and don't interrupt the interviewer, and also ask and give open answers. Furthermore, you should maintain eye contact, but try to avoid too much eye contact or it can be awkward. No finger tapping or yawning, and only a few gestures. Open friendly body language, so don't cross your arms. Active listening and seem interested when someone's talking, so you can do this by smiling, nodding, or leaning forward. Appropriate appearance, good posture, and proofread your written media work so that it can't be misunderstood as it cannot be taken back. And do not get aggressive or angry with the interviewer. By following all this, you seem more professional and you give out a positive image of yourself, unlike if you follow the red tips within this slide. I'm going to compare 4 medias: written media, radio, interview with a sponsor, interview with a manager. With written media, it should not be misunderstood as it can lead to negative media on you. You should proofread your work so that there aren't any spelling mistakes or misgrammar. Some written media, like social media, you can make a few mistakes with the grammar and spelling or even use slang because it suits the audience if they are younger people. However, with written media such as newspaper, you want to act professional, so that means you should use correct language and no slang. Whereas the radio, it would only be audio, so you only have to focus on your voice, so you would use a normal pace of speaking, change of tone, speak clear, language suited to the audience, no swearing, don't interrupt, specialist language. So also, this does mean that your body language and your appearance does not matter as it's not on show. With the 2 interviews, the first one starting with the sponsor, you must be very formal and have a smart appearance and appropriate language with specialist vocabulary so that you seem professional and an ideal sponsor. You should ask open and closed questions, such as the 2 examples listed. Whereas with an interview with a manager, you can be less formal as you're already part of the business and he's your manager. So you're on a more friend basis. However, you should use appropriate clothing and have good language and specialist vocabulary with him. You should always plan for an interview so that you're prepared for all the questions and you can answer with a good response which would not lead to any negative views or misunderstood views from the media. But this is only good for pre-recorded interviews, as you already know what the questions are going to be. However, when you're with a live interview, you're going to have to use more self-control over your emotions, because it's going to be just after or during or before the event. Furthermore, your speech or answers should be suited to the audience. So if you're speaking to children, you can be less formal and use a more simple language, more simple vocabulary, so that they can understand more. However, if you have an interview with a sponsor, you would want to use formal and more professional approach. Whereas if you're talking with a coach, you could use a less formal approach, as you're on a more friends basis. It is ideal to rehearse your speeches, as it will add confidence, and you can add the correct pitch, correct pace, and make sure you're clear, as you already know you've memorized what you're going to say. And this will help the audience to understand you clearly. Every athlete requires a plan to help them reach their goal. In most cases, their goals are to become a professional athlete. So their plan should be focused on how they're going to get there, which means they need to have a plan which allows them to stay on track to achieve their goal. They need to direct all their attention and effort so that this certain outcome is achieved, which is to become a pro. They should develop tactics to help them achieve this outcome. This will allow the athlete to increase his likelihood of turning pro by putting all his effort and work into this certain outcome. However, this may fail, so a backup career must be planned, because anything could happen, such as an accident, like a car crash, an injury, or a loss of motivation, or not getting a contract, which would mean they would lose all their work and effort and their money. An athlete should use SWOT analysts to help them create their plan to reach their main goal, which in this case is to turn to a professional footballer. And a SWOT analyst stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And starting with the strengths, there are of their skills, such as basic skills like numeracy, key skills like IT, practical skills, instructing, and technical skills such as dribbling in football. And this also applies for the weaknesses, whereas opportunities are things which can enhance the chances of reaching their goal. For example, access to pro club trials, access to semi-professional coaching, whereas threats are barriers which can prevent the athlete turning pro, like injury, finance, time available to train, and these should try to be eliminated or reduced. Once the SWOT has been completed, they should use it to assist them with goal setting. For example, a short-term goal would be score every match, and then a medium-term goal could receive trials from a top-level club, and then the long-term goal could be accept contract and become a professional footballer. And all these goals are to help them reach their main aim, and they're all of different durations. For example, the short ones for 1 day to 1 month, the medium is 1 month to 6 months, the large is 6 months to 7 years, and these are all bridge fillers to help them achieve their main aim, such as become a professional athlete. In this case, I've done my SWOT analysis on my classmate James, who is a footballer and plays in the striker position. His long-term goal is to turn pro, and he plans on doing this by completing 3 short-term goals, such as score once in every match, only lose the ball from a tackle 1 in 5 times, and put maximum effort in all his sessions. And then the medium-term goal is receive trials at a higher rated club, train 6 times a week, and then he's going to advance onto his long-term goals, which is train 7 times a week, get trials for a pro club, and become a pro footballer. By following these short-term and medium goals, they're going to help him develop as a footballer and then help increase the chance of becoming a professional athlete. The SWOT analysis of him were his strengths were shooting, dribbling, communication, literacy, determination, and one-to-one teaching, and he's creative. Whereas the weaknesses are leadership, IT skills, numeracy, sprint speed, passing, instructing a whole group, and reaction times. Whereas his threats are injury, financial support, time available to train, and travelling by public transport, which can cause delays to training sessions or competitions, or issues travelling there because it's a further distance. Then it would take a longer time to travel rather than having a car. Whereas his opportunities are that he has access to regional clubs and trials. He has access to football coaches and sports education, and he has some equipment at home which he can practice with, and he also has access to additional football coaching qualifications and general fitness. James's SMART targets are on 2 selected weaknesses, which are his main weaknesses, which would hold him back from turning pro. These are passing and his sprint speed. To improve his passing by getting a 75+ percentage in every match on a constant basis, and he wants to do this within 2 months. Whereas his sprint speed, he wants to increase his speed from 12.5 seconds to not 12.5 seconds, from 13 seconds to 12.5 over 100 meters distance within 2 months. These 2 goals will help him improve by increasing his performance, as these are his major weaknesses. And the methods of training we would use are passing drills, which are supplied by his football coach. Also, he would take his training further by practicing outside of sessions. For example, playing for additional club or passing drills in the park. Whereas James' sprint speed can increase by joining the local athletic club and practicing 100 meters with the qualified coaches. And I've listed an example of it below. SWOT analysis for James's backup career, which is physiotherapy. James has a strength in communication in the team, experience in sport and sport education. He's friendly, he's motivated, his literacy, one-to-one teaching, and he's creative. Whereas his weaknesses are his leadership, his IT skills, his numeracy, anatomy knowledge, and instructing. His opportunities are advice from other physiotherapists, PE teachers, and university teachers. And he can apply for 5 universities, which increases the chances of getting in over 1. He can also do a foundation year instead of adding an additional subject such as biology. He can also add additional courses such as level 2 gym instructor, which is provided free by the government. His threats are the career is competitive, so he's going to need to give himself an extra edge over everyone else. He have to meet the required qualifications. He has to pass the course. He needs to have the time available to study and work at the same time, and the motivation He hasn't done A level in biology, and there's a low enrollment rate. His goals are to apply for the course and get into the university and then accept the offer, his short-term goals. His medium-term goals is study 2 to 4 hours every day, ensure that he's getting the best grade on all his assignments by putting all his effort in. His long-term goal is get a bachelor degree in physiotherapy and do additional study 2 to 4 hours every day. Also apply and receive a physiotherapist job after being qualified. James has 2 smart targets and NAFNE knowledge, which is a major weakness as it's required to know the body in order to become a physiotherapist, and he wants to improve this by doing additional studies using the resources at his college or taking on an additional course. He wants to improve by retaking the same test twice. His previous score was 66 and this time he's hoping to get 75 or more, whereas the same things for ICT. However, he scored 50 out of 100 and he wants to get 65 out of 100. And both of these he wants to do within 3 months. He requires ICT as you're going to need the general use of ICT skills in order to operate, as most of the data is stored on the computers. The pathway of reaching his second career choice is to finish a bachelor degree within physiotherapy. In order to do this, he's going to need 3 A levels at AAB on average, 5 GCSEs, grade A to C, including English, language, maths, and at least 1 science-based. However, he can still get in with other courses such as BTEC Science at DMM, or he can even do a foundation course, which would mean he doesn't need to do an additional biology science. Furthermore, the starting salary for physiotherapy is 21,000 to 27,000 at band 5, and then at band 6 it raises to 25 to 34,000, and finally at band 7 it's 30,000 to 40,000. However, private sectors are still similar, but they can vary. Also, each university has its own entry requirements, but on average it's an AAB or as a BTEC DMM, and this is done by doing a 3 years bachelor degree and then registering at the HCPC, which then you can go for the job within physiotherapy, which is normally up to 37.5 hours a week. However, the cost of this course would be free as it's funded by the NHS as long as you're doing it full time. However, part-time courses are £750 per module.